In the heart of Renaissance Italy, a family rose to unimaginable power, seizing the very seat of God on earth. But their rule was stained with poison, betrayal, and a darkness that shocked even their own brutal age. They were beautiful, brilliant, and utterly ruthless. They were the Borgias. What twisted ambition, what moral abyss, allowed a family to command popes, princes, and armies while committing acts of incest, murder, and corruption so extreme, they became synonymous with evil itself. What was the true anatomy of their dread? Welcome to Anatomy of Dread. In this documentary, we will perform a psychological autopsy on the Borgia family. We will dissect their ruthless ascent to power, the chilling methods they employed, and the profound terror they inflicted upon Renaissance Europe. By the end, you will understand the real, unvarnished truth of history's most infamous criminal dynasty. Our story begins not in the brutal battlefields of warlords, but in the gilded, treacherous halls of Renaissance Rome, the very heart of the Catholic Church. This was the stage where the Borgia family would rise, not through holy virtue, but through sheer, ruthless ambition. The patriarch was Rodrigo Borgia, born in Spain in 1431, a man of immense intelligence, charm, and boundless ambition. He was deeply connected to his uncle, Pope Calixtus III, who elevated him to cardinal at a young age. This put Rodrigo in a prime position to observe, learn, and master the cutthroat politics of the Vatican. From a psychological perspective, Rodrigo Borgia possessed an extraordinary blend of qualities that made him uniquely dangerous. Insatiable ambition, his desire for power was absolute and unwavering. Charisma and persuasion, he was known for his eloquent speech, lavish lifestyle, and ability to win friends and influence people. Skills he honed to deadly effect. Unflinching pragmatism, moral scruples were luxuries he could not afford. The ends always justified the means. He used his position as cardinal to accumulate vast wealth, power, and influence, famously living a decadent lifestyle, openly keeping mistresses, and fathering numerous illegitimate children, defying the very celibacy he preached. These children, particularly Cesare and Lucrezia, would become key players in his future reign of terror. In 1492, the year Columbus sailed for the New World, Rodrigo Borgia finally achieved his ultimate goal, through a highly contested papal election, widely believed to be rigged through massive bribery and political promises. He ascended to the throne of St. Peter, becoming Pope Alexander VI. This was not a spiritual elevation. It was a hostile takeover of the most powerful institution in Europe. The psychological impact of his election was immediate. The Roman aristocracy, the established Italian families, and many within the church itself viewed him with suspicion and fear. A Spanish pope, known for his corruption and open flaunting of ecclesiastical rules, signaled a new era, one where the papacy itself would become a tool for raw personal power. His ascent marked the true beginning of the Borgia family's reign of terror. Now with the keys of St. Peter in his hand, Pope Alexander VI was ready to elevate his family to unprecedented heights, wielding not just spiritual authority but the political, military, and financial might of the Church to achieve his ruthless agenda. The stage was set for an era of unmatched corruption, violence, and profound dread in Renaissance Italy. With Rodrigo Borgia, now Pope Alexander VI, his vision for the Borgia dynasty was clear: to carve out a powerful secular kingdom for his children in the heart of Italy, using the immense resources of the Church. His most formidable instruments in this ruthless endeavor were his offspring, Cesare and Lucrezia, figures whose names would become synonymous with Renaissance intrigue and unspeakable acts. From a psychological perspective, Cesare Borgia was his father's true heir in ruthlessness and ambition. Initially destined for the Church, becoming a cardinal at a young age, Cesare quickly shed his ecclesiastical robes for a suit of armor. He was intelligent, charismatic, and a brilliant military commander, but also utterly devoid of moral compunction. Caesar's anatomy of dread stemmed from his cold, calculated efficiency in achieving his goals. He was Pope Alexander VI's enforcer, leading armies across Italy to subdue papal states, eliminate rival lords, and expand Borgia power. His methods were brutal. Political assassination, rivals, or those who merely stood in his way, frequently met sudden, mysterious deaths. Poison was a favored tool, as was the assassin's blade. Betrayal and deceit, he was infamous for his Machiavellian tactics, making alliances only to break them, promising safety only to deliver death. His word was utterly untrustworthy. Psychological terror, he cultivated a fearsome reputation, striking fear into the hearts of both enemies and allies, ensuring compliance through dread. Then there was Lucrezia Borgia, Often depicted as a seductive femme fatale, her psychological reality was more complex. While frequently portrayed as actively participating in her family's dark deeds, she was also a pawn in their grand political game. She was married off 3 times, each union a strategic alliance for the Borgias, often ending in tragedy for her husbands. Lucrezia's dread was different. She wielded power through allure and influence, but was also a victim of her family's ambition. Her life was marked by the constant shadow of scandal, often fueled by rumors, some perhaps true, some certainly exaggerated, of incest with her father and brother, and accusations of her own involvement in poisoning. Her beauty, juxtaposed with the whispered horrors surrounding her, created a potent, unsettling aura. Together, Cesare and Lucrezia, orchestrated by their papal father, embodied the Borgia dynasty's dual nature, the dazzling brilliance of Renaissance power combined with an unparalleled moral depravity. They terrified Europe, leaving a trail of blood and broken lives, cementing their family's legacy as one of history's most fascinating and fearsome criminal enterprises, where every banquet could be a trap and every smile could hide a dagger. The Borgia family's grip on power was not merely maintained through military might or political maneuvering. It was secured and expanded through a chilling array of dark arts tactics that terrified Renaissance Europe and earned them their infamous reputation. Poison, assassination, and even the shadow of incest were their preferred tools. From a psychological perspective, this created an atmosphere of pervasive dread in the Borgia court. Every meal could be a potential death sentence. Every rival was a target. Trust was a luxury no one could afford, particularly among those closest to power. Poison was arguably the Borgias' most feared weapon. It was subtle, deniable, and left little trace. The infamous cantarella, rumored to be an arsenic-based poison concocted by the Borgias themselves, was believed to be their instrument of choice. Wealthy cardinals, powerful nobles, or inconvenient husbands would suddenly fall ill and die, their assets conveniently absorbed by the Borgia. The psychological impact was immense. No one was safe, and every unexpected death was immediately attributed to the Pope's sinister influence. Assassination was another frequently employed tactic, especially when poison proved too slow or uncertain. Cesare Borgia in particular was notorious for arranging the murders of rivals, often in broad daylight, to send an unmistakable message. One of Lucrezia's husbands, Alfonso of Aragon, was brutally murdered in his bed after an initial failed attempt at poisoning. These acts were not random. They were calculated strikes designed to eliminate threats and consolidate power, demonstrating the brutal impunity with which the Borgias operated. Then there was the chilling specter of incest. While historically difficult to prove definitively, rumors of incestuous relationships between Pope Alexander VI and his daughter Lucrezia, and between Lucrezia and her brother Cesare, were rampant throughout Europe. These rumors, whether true or politically motivated slander, amplified the family's image of depravity and moral corruption. Psychologically, it reinforced the idea of a family so utterly consumed by lust and power that they violated the most sacred taboos, further setting them apart as uniquely evil. This systematic use of poison, assassination, and the shadow of forbidden desires created a climate of profound terror. The Borgia court, outwardly splendid and cultured, was a viper's nest where alliances were temporary, life was cheap, and even the most powerful individuals lived in constant fear. The dread was absolute, a chilling reminder that in the ruthless pursuit of power, no act was too heinous, and no family bond was sacred enough to withstand the Borgias' dark ambition. The Borgia reign of terror, built on ruthless ambition and dark arts, seemed unstoppable. But like all empires founded on such precarious grounds, it was ultimately fragile, and its undoing was as dramatic as its rise, hastened ironically by the very weapon they so frequently wielded, poison. From a psychological perspective, the Borgias' downfall highlights the precariousness of power built on fear alone. While dread can enforce obedience, it rarely inspires true loyalty. Enemies were constantly plotting, and allies were always looking for an opportunity to turn. The beginning of the end came swiftly in August 1503. Pope Alexander VI, the patriarch, the mastermind of the Borgia dynasty, fell gravely ill. His illness was sudden and severe, leading many to believe he had been poisoned. The most common theory suggests that Alexander and Cesare, his son, had intended to poison a wealthy cardinal to seize his assets, but by a catastrophic error, drank the poisoned wine themselves. While historical sources offer varying accounts, some suggesting malaria or another natural illness, The widespread belief that poison was the cause is a testament to the Borgias' own reputation. The dread they had inflicted on others now, in the public imagination, turned back on them. It was a chillingly poetic justice. Pope Alexander VI died, and with his death, the entire Borgia Empire began to unravel with astonishing speed. Cesare Borgia, also gravely ill from the same mysterious affliction, was incapacitated at the crucial moment. Without his father's papal authority and his own military genius temporarily sidelined, Caesar's vast network of power and alliances crumbled. The dread that Caesar had so skillfully cultivated quickly dissipated. The enemies he had made, the families he had wronged, now saw their chance for revenge. Cesare, once the most feared man in Italy, found himself stripped of his armies, his titles, and his influence. He was eventually captured, imprisoned in Spain, and after an escape attempt, died ignominiously in a minor skirmish in 1507. Lucrezia Borgia, surprisingly, managed to escape the worst of her family's downfall. She navigated the treacherous political landscape, remarried, and retreated into a life of patronage and piety, seemingly leaving her family's dark past behind. But the shadow of the Borgia name would follow her always. The swiftness of their collapse underscored a crucial psychological truth. An empire built solely on fear and personal power without deep institutional roots or genuine loyalty is utterly dependent on its central figure. Once that figure is removed, particularly by such a sudden and ignominious end, the entire structure disintegrates. The Borgias' reign of terror ended not with a grand battle, but with a poisoned cup, a chilling testament to the very methods they mastered, leaving behind a legacy of unparalleled ambition and profound enduring dread. And so, the true, brutal story of the Borgia family, Renaissance Europe's most infamous dynasty, is laid bare. We have journeyed through Rodrigo's ruthless ascent to the papacy, witnessed the chilling ambition of Cesare and Lucrezia, and dissected their systematic use of poison, assassination, and scandal, culminating in their dramatic, poisoned downfall. So, why does the dread of the Borgias continue to captivate and even horrify us today? From a psychological perspective, the Borgias' story resonates with a primal human fascination, the allure of absolute power and unchecked ambition. They pushed the boundaries of morality, demonstrating what happens when individuals are entirely unconstrained by ethical concerns in their pursuit of control. The real dread lies in seeing humanity's capacity for such profound depravity, especially when cloaked in the sanctity of religious authority. The anatomy of dread compels us to understand the enduring appeal of such figures. The Borgias were both monsters and patrons of the arts, figures of immense power and scandalous notoriety. They embodied the paradox of the Renaissance itself, an era of unparalleled artistic and intellectual flourishing, existing alongside profound brutality and corruption. They perfectly illustrate the dark side of human genius when unleashed without a moral compass. Their legacy is not just one of historical fact, but of enduring myth, the shadow of corruption. They became the quintessential example of papal corruption, forever staining the image of the church in the popular imagination. The blueprint for tyranny, Cesare Borgia, with his ruthless efficiency, even served as an inspiration for Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince, a chilling manual on acquiring and maintaining power by any means necessary. The allure of forbidden desires, the rumors of incest and depravity ensured their story would continue to shock and fascinate for centuries, appealing to our darkest curiosities. The enduring power of the Borgias story lies in its timeless lessons. They remind us that the greatest dangers often come not from foreign invaders, but from within, from the unchecked ambition of those who wield power, and the profound corruption that can infect even the most sacred institutions. The anatomy of dread reveals that sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are not born of myth, but from the human heart's insatiable hunger for control, leaving a legacy of fascination, scandal, and profound, unsettling dread. And so, the final investigation is now passed to you. After dissecting their ambition, their dark arts, and their downfall, what do you believe is the most enduring psychological lesson humanity can take from the Borgia family? Leave your analysis in the comments below. Let's continue the discussion about this monumental dynasty and the enduring power of their dreadful legacy.